Hi, I wanted to take a minute to explain the research and writing in the workplace assignment. It's not due until week 4, which I know might feel kind of far away, but I highly recommend that you get started on it now, just so you don't feel so pressed later. Um, so there's different sections of this assignment. We're going to be specifically talking about the week 4 part, which is the assignment itself. Later, you will have a revision and then a reflection. But for now, I'm not going to read all of this to you. I just wanted to go over some of the parts that I highlighted to make sure that I really emphasized those sections because they're more important. So, with talking about the overview, it's really important to consider your intended audience. I mentioned this in the past video, having to do with your discussion question, but considering your intended audience is essential to any writing that you're doing at all. Even if you're just writing for yourself, the way that you just write for yourself, say in a journal, is different than if you were writing for an audience. Thinking about who that audience is, what is important to that audience, their values, their motivations, all of it is really, really important because it will determine the tone you use, which determines the words you use, the arguments you make. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to really consider your audience. In this situation, your audience is a potential employer. So it's part of the interview process or the application process. So thinking about, okay, well, this is who it is that I want to work for. I want to put my best foot forward. You have to be mindful of personal information. There is some information that employers are by law not allowed to ask you. So relating to age, religion, all that stuff. Um, so you don't have to disclose any of that. So be very careful about what it is you disclose, but making sure that you're focusing on your strengths. You're trying to put your best foot forward. So the assignment itself, you are being mostly graded on grammar and mechanics, but that's not all. It's also having to do with your organization of thought, with examples, descriptions, explanations, and word count. So there's different things you have to do. First, you have to choose one of the prompts, and the prompts are here. So choose one of those. What is a time where your responsibilities became overwhelming? And if you don't have a job situation that works with, you have life situations that works with. Reading your introductory um, icebreakers, I already know that some of you have responsibilities that can be really overwhelming. So you can talk about that. That's totally fine. What is it that you did to get back on track? And how will you prevent getting overloaded in the future? Thinking about workplace. Yes, you can use things outside of the workplace, but it's really important you relate it back to whatever it is that you are applying for. Second option is to write about a project or a situation that didn't go great. It wasn't as you expected. And again, what steps you took to get it back on track. What did you do well? What would you have done differently? Again, showing your strengths, but being honest of, I made this choice and it didn't work. So this is what I would do differently. Um, how has it helped prepare you for a management position? That one specifically is looking at management. The third is describing a time you took initiative without being asked. You just stepped up without having to be told. What is the situation? Why did you choose to act without guidance? And that's an important part of it because sometimes employers want you to take initiative and sometimes they didn't ask you to take initiative for a reason. So thinking about why you chose to, what were the results, and what does it show about your leadership style? Now, these are all questions that are very likely to be asked in one way or another on an application, in an interview. So they're very real life situations. So again, you're choosing one of those prompts. Think about, again, even if it's outside of the workplace, how is it that can relate back? Make sure that you respond to the prompt, that you're not going off topic. It's multiple paragraphs. It's well organized. You have descriptions. It has professional language. It needs to be at least 550 words in length and submitted as a Word document. If it's submitted as a Word document, it is easier for me to give you feedback. And plus, when you submit things as applications, oftentimes they want it in a certain format. And if you do not do it in that certain format, things aren't going to go great. You do not have to use any outside information for this. There's not research that you have to do. However, if you decide that you would like to do research, and more specifically, if research would help you, make sure that you cite it in APA style. I also wanted to point out that even though this assignment is not due until week 4, I highly recommend you get started now. Even if that's just choosing a prompt and jotting down some notes. Maybe next week doing an outline of, okay, this is more solidified of what is it that I want to put where. My first paragraph is going to include this kind of information, jot down some notes. Okay, my second paragraph is going to do this. Perhaps doing kind of a pre-write rough draft with that. And then the week after, when it's due, it's not so overwhelming because you have been working on it little by little as we go. There is the rubric that's attached. So I wanted to point that out as well. Whenever there's a rubric attached to any of your assignments, whether it's for this class or any others that you take, it's really important that you pay attention to that rubric. Your instructors are required to use that rubric. And that's how it is that we're grading. So again, grammar and mechanics are worth the most. Making sure that you're not having any mistakes in grammar, whether that's sentences that aren't sentences, because they are fragments, because they're run-ons, mechanics, which includes like where you place things to kind of keep it a little bit simple, punctuation, spelling, all of that together, make sure it's good. Then there is organization, examples, and descriptions. That's the content of the actual assignment is worth 30% or 30 points. So just something to keep in mind. I am totally fine if you run after you have finished your rough draft, if you run it through, say, Grammarly. I'm okay with that. I know that some professors are not. I am fine with you using tools that are available to you as long as you use them correctly. You should never have anything write it for you because that defeats the purpose. But if once you have finished it, you run it through Grammarly and it points out some mistakes, that I think is fine. Because especially sometimes some of the mistakes it points out aren't really mistakes. So you still have to use your critical thinking in there. Just like with what's due this week and with every other thing, if you have any questions, please reach out. Please let me know. I'm more than happy to help with anything that you may need.